Most parents are wary of the so-called heavy metal music.
Salut à tous, METALXS, c'est l'essentiel de l'actualité métal et dérivé en quelques minutes, le tout en images, en musique et en interview. METALXS est une exclusivité Refix by Crédit Mutuel, la plateforme de toutes les musiques, tous les talents en partenariat avec Artforce. C'est parti! Il y a un an, le groupe suédois FLAMES reprenait la route après une interruption forcée de 2 ans. Une libération attendue comme chez la plupart des musiciens qui ont vu leur métier stoppé net par la pandémie. Mais FLAMES a su tirer profit de cette période pour créer son 14e album studio, Foregone, qu'il défend à présent sur scène. METALXS a rencontré son guitariste et principal compositeur, Björn Gelotte. Il revient tout d'abord sur les instants qui ont précédé l'arrêt brutal de la tournée d'FLAMES en 2020.
The last couple of shows we played before the pandemic was in Russia actually. Played, I believe, Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then we had a few days off and then we were flying down to New Zealand for a show, and we were supposed to do China, Japan, possibly Indonesia as well. But we saw first China got cancelled, then Japan got cancelled, Indonesia got cancelled, but New Zealand and Australia was still going on. So we figured, yeah, we'll go. We love it down there. We've never been to New Zealand, so we fly all the way down there. It's literally the other side of the world for us. And we are there for 3 or 4 hours, then we hear the country's going on lockdown. So it's like, okay. We flew out another couple of hours later. We had to fly all the way back home again. But we had lunch and a couple of drinks. And a friend of mine bought some vinyl records and then we flew home. It's a long trip for a lunch. Yeah.
Pour un musicien qui n'a jamais cessé la musique une moindre minute en 25 ans, cette période d'inactivité a été pour le moins inédite.
I think in the beginning of the pandemic, I felt really useless. I felt it was rough. Everything I've done since I was a grown, I've been touring since I was 19, and it's been a steady thing, touring, making an album, and it's been my whole life. And all of a sudden this is all taken away, so I felt pointless, I felt useless. But I mean, eventually they started opening up a little bit, like you can go to a restaurant and watch some football with your friends, you could see the other side of the world. They were starting to have concerts and stuff, and you could see a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and that was a little bit exciting and inspiring again. But for the most part, I was just hanging out at home, family, friends, painting, playing, a lot of video games, reading, watching movies, making a lot of food. So I was kind of comfortable after a while, but all I want to do is be on stage. All I want to do is play. So it was frustrating. It was not until we could actually go back to the US that we decided that we could go over there and start writing and see if we can make another record, and we felt like we should. There's too much time in between, and now we can see the live shows again. I got really inspired and wanted to work again. I mean, I just went over and that was before Christmas last year. Went over for 3-4 weeks and just started writing, and it was awesome. I hadn't seen him during the whole pandemic basically, and I haven't seen any of the other guys. So it was awesome to see them again. And then came back after Christmas and New Year's, and we continued writing and turned it into a recording. Everybody came in and did their thing, and it was awesome. It was a really good time.
Depuis plusieurs années, FLAMES a pris l'habitude de s'expatrier hors d'Europe pour réaliser ses disques.
It's what it's been pretty much since, I don't know if it's Siren Charms, it was, a sense of purpose maybe. It's been for many years, many records now, it's been basically me and Anders trying to find a spot somewhere and sit down and start working on ideas. But really the last 3 records, Battle, Side the Mask and Foregone have been written mostly in Los Angeles, because we have our producer in the studio is there, and we like to have the writing process turn in to a recording sessions, so it's all organic all the way until the end. It's a format that fits us really well, and it's good to be away from distractions like friends and family and everything, just focus on this, because we want to make sure we put every bit of energy and focus into the record. So it's been good for us.
Le nouvel album Foregone est produit une fois de plus par Howard Benson, une collaboration qui a fait ses preuves.
I'd say it usually starts off with working with Howard. You bounce the ideas that like me and Anders puts together like embryos of songs, like basic kind of rough structures, and I'd like to present everything so everybody understands what's going on. So I put all the guitars, bass and drums, I program in order to make it, you know, sound not finished, but very close towards how it's supposed to sound later. And then we hopefully put some vocals on there, and then we let Howard listen to it and start bouncing ideas. Usually he's agreeing very much, and that's really awesome, having somebody who has all that knowledge and has done so many different musics, just agreeing with your arrangements and with your ideas. It's incredible. It makes you very proud, and obviously he's super good at what he does. The small details he wants to change make all the sense in the world. So it's awesome having that start with him, and then Anders goes in and works with him more specific, like on all the vocals, the lyrics. They make sure it all fits together, sounds the way it should, and I work with Mike, and we just sit and talk and record. He's super efficient, so I don't need to spend 12-14 hours in the studio. Everything is really well set up. He's got assistants that are always really good at what they do, so we can talk for a couple hours and I can record for like 4 hours, and it's only 6 hours in the studio, and I've been super efficient. I can go back to the house and continue writing, so that's why the relationship works so good.
Foregone est un album qui renoue avec un petit peu plus d'agressivité que son prédécesseur, The Mask.
We had Chris Lodalgi mixed the last one, and it sounded fantastic. I really like how it sounds. It's got maybe a rock feel to it. It's super clean, it's big, it's everything we ever wanted for that record. This time around, when we started talking about, we wanted a more of a metal production and have the guitars and the drums more in the forefront compared to what we've done in the past. And I think it just fits this record, because it's got a little bit more aggression to it perhaps than in the past, possibly out of the pandemic. Musically, I never really thought about it, but obviously having been shut down from what I love or what we love most likely had something to do with the energy on it. And then dressing it in the right clothes, like putting the right production on there, we had a song out for a bunch of different producers, really cool names, guys that we all wanted to work with, and hoped that they would come back with something awesome and we could just pick and choose. And in the end, the version that came back that sounded the best out of him was actually Joe, our old drummer, you know. And it was fantastic, and getting to work with him mixing the record, he did an incredible job. And he knows us since he's been playing with us for a long time, and he's good friends, and he understands where we want to go. So he had a great understanding, and it was a very good result. But we were very happy with it.
L'album ayant été écrit en pleine période pandémique, cela se ressent aussi dans les paroles d'Anders Frieden.
I think it's possibly more, I mean, he would use whatever he at the time would read or think about in his lyrics, and that is during a weird time, obviously. So I think musically I didn't think about it. It was more like whatever pops up in my head, let's try to catch it, and we'll see what we think about it, and I arrange it up. But in hindsight, looking back at it, it's quite possible that it had something to do with it. But I didn't use that, and I didn't think to channel it into anything. It possibly had something to do with it.
D'ailleurs, sur le titre The Great Deceiver, Anders écrit « Retour à la réalité une fois de plus. Une pause de 2 ans pour réinitialiser nos cerveaux. Mais les temps changent pour le pire. Joey avait raison, c'est le compte à rebours final. » Une allusion très étonnante au Final Countdown du groupe Europe.
I think it's a brilliant line. there's many of those in the lyrics, and they're always there, you know, for you to find. This one is really clever because it makes sense, and you have to understand. You have to understand it when you read it. So no, but it makes sense. And it is the Great Deceiver is probably one of the more direct approaches to a statement regarding what's going on in Europe right now.
L'album Foregone est aussi le point de départ d'une nouvelle collaboration sur disque avec le guitariste Chris Broderick et une section rythmique qui n'a principalement été associée jusqu'ici qu'en concert.
It was an absolute pleasure seeing all these guys coming into the studio. For me, I mean, Tanner, I know he's the best drummer I've ever played with, and that's not saying anybody I've played with else has been bad. They've been fantastic, but Tanner is just another level. It's incredible to watch him in the studio. Bryce walks in and does his thing, and he just glues with the drums right away, and feels like you're listening to it like from a live perspective, and that's rare. So I'm very happy with that. And then Chris, obviously, Broderick comes in, and I asked him fairly early if he wanted to lay down some solos for the record, and he said he was really happy to do that. And so I told him a few parts, like maybe you could work on these and come in there and just jam something out, and he come back a day later and he's written 5 solos or whatever, and they're all killer. So they just, I was happy as a pig in muck when they all came in. It was really, really fun.
Foregone, le 14e album d'In Flames, est dans les bacs depuis ce 10 février. Après avoir fait une date au Bataclan en fin d'année, le groupe sera de retour en France le jeudi 15 juin pour la 16e édition du Hellfest. Parmi les albums attendus dans les prochains jours, notez sur vos tablettes. Il y a 2 ans, le fondateur du groupe néerlandais de métal symphonique Dylan faisait le grand ménage et se séparait de tous ses musiciens, notamment de la chanteuse Charlotte Wessels. Dark Waters, c'est l'album du retour qui permettra de juger des qualités de leur successeur et de Diana Liar. La jeunesse de Gottlord remonte au tout début des enregistrements du groupe norvégien de death et black metal Dark Throne en 1991. Cet album démo paru en 1996 avec du chant sort aujourd'hui dans sa version instrumentale remasterisée, Gottlord Original. Direction San Diego, en Californie, pour le post-hardcore de Pierce the Veil et un premier album en 7 ans, The Jaws of Life, le premier sans le batteur Mike Fuentes, écarté du groupe en 2017 après ses démêlés judiciaires. 7e album studio pour l'une de nos fiertés françaises, Clone, qui publie Meanwhile, un petit bijou une fois de plus de progressif rock qui aura à coup sûr le retentissement international qu'il mérite. Derrière Motive Black, il y a la chanteuse-actrice new-yorkaise Elena Justin. Et autour de ce premier album, Auburn, dans une veine alternative rock metal, des invités comme Marcus Currier de P.O.D., Ray Luzier de Korn et Carla Harvey de Butcher Babies. 5 ans d'absence et voici de retour le groupe Paramore avec son 6e album studio This Is Why, que certains définissent déjà comme post-punk. Un jour avant de se lancer dans une tournée européenne de plus de 25 dates en tête d'affiche, Avatar sort Dance Devil Dance, un album événement, le 9e des Suédois, inclassable et visionnaire. L'un des plus importants représentants du Christian rock américain, Skillet, ressort son 11e disque studio, Dominion, en version de luxe sous le titre Dominion Day of Destiny, avec 5 titres supplémentaires inédits. Le 28 juillet 2022, le supergroupe progressif Transatlantic se produisait à l'Olympia. La date est désormais immortalisée sur disque avec la sortie de The Final Flight live at l'Olympia. 3 ans après son premier album solo, God Bless the Renegades, le guitariste et cofondateur de Seven Dust, Clint Lowery, publie un EP de 5 titres supplémentaires sous le titre Ghostwriter. Ne vous trompez pas, Alive est le titre d'un nouvel album studio et pas en concert du chanteur vétéran Robin McCauley, avec une formation différente de son autre projet Black Swan. C'est une nouvelle manière de découvrir Motley Crue ou, pour les collectionneurs, d'ajouter cette pièce 5 CD ou 5 vinyles couleurs à leur discothèque. Crucial Crew, The Studio Album 1981-1989 est un petit coffret qui regroupe les 5 disques multiplatines parus durant les années 80. C'était il y a 34 ans. Obituary sortait son premier album, Slowly We Rot. Et comme avec ses pairs Death et Morbid Angel, la phase du métal n'a plus jamais été la même depuis. Tous ces pionniers du death metal, pour beaucoup influencés par le Slayer des années 80, ont créé un nouvel épicentre musical en Floride, renforcé par des studios mythiques, les Morrissound Studios à Tampa, et marqué la production extrême pour des décennies. En 2023, Obituary poursuit inexorablement sa route et vient de révéler un tout nouvel album, Dying of Everything. Obituary, c'est le socle inamovible d'une fratrie, le chanteur John Tardy et son frère batteur Donald. Et entre eux et la France, c'est une longue histoire. Les plus anciens se rappelleront d'un gibus en septembre 1990. On compte une bonne soixantaine de dates dans l'Hexagone depuis cette époque. C'est donc un grand plaisir pour METALXS de retrouver Donald à quelques heures de monter sur la scène de la mythique Olympia.
We've played Paris many times over the last 3 decades, and I remember the first few that were the small ones. I remember, the last time we were here, which was right after that tragic, brutal night, and we were only 7 days later. We made that decision to stay on tour and don't go home. And don't let terrorists terrorize us. And it was with Carcass and Napalm Death and Voivod, and we all agreed, don't let that stop us. And so now we move forward now and look at where we are now, and we are here with good friends of ours, with Heaven Shall Burn and Trivium and the Malevolence dudes who we just met on this tour, and they couldn't be any cooler of people and brutal, great band. And I'm lucky. It's a beautiful theater. And as always, Obituary is known for really one thing: we're really good live, and that's why I can't wait to play tonight and see how this theater can absorb some death metal.
L'album Dying of Everything, paru le 13 janvier, était l'un des albums extrêmes les plus attendus de l'année et d'ailleurs l'un des premiers à paraître en 2023. Pourquoi à cet instant précis?
By chance, because we sat on this album for 2 years, and which was not planned, but of course the pandemic put a stop to everything, not just the music world, but the entire planet. So we were planning on getting back from the American tour and getting into the studio, and then of course the pandemic shut everything down. So we used that time to work on the songs, maybe dissect them a little bit and make sure that they're everything they need to be. And we did have plenty of time writing this album, and so the variety of some of the fastest double bass I've ever attempted, and to the slowest song we might have ever written. And then of course the in-between is what we do well, which is all that meat and potatoes, we call it, the groove, the mid-tempo, heavy riffs, and it's a little taste of all of that in this new album. And then we had to wait. It was agonizing 2 years for us to wait, but we were not going to release the album until Europe was open.
Le titre Dying of Everything tourne en dérision la peur de tout qui s'est propagée dans le monde, entretenue par les médias et l'anxiété générale des populations.
We're the last band to worry about song titles, album titles. That's the last thing we do. Like, we are finished with albums, and the titles are working titles, like Song 1, Song 2, the Slayer sounding song, the other Slayer sounding song, until the end of the record, and my brother finally has to come up with song titles and album titles. And a cool story with this title is that, yes, there was crazy stuff going on with the planet, and it is a perfect title for the album of what just happened the last few years with this planet. But it was actually something that was written by my girlfriend in a poem, because she's a writer, and the strange thing and the cool thing about it is it was a poem that was written in 2017. So it was before pandemic. It was before. She's highly intelligent, sometimes highly depressed, so she writes some dark, and part of the poem was something to the point of if I can't continue to live, can I begin to die? And then it ends it with dying of everything. And I just remembered that once we were in a pandemic and my brother was actually working on that song, he was singing, and I remember dying of everything, and he was singing, "Will you come out and play?" And I was like, it's the same phrases, the same cadence, And I told him, I'm like, man, it would be a cool title to an album, and it would be a cool part of this song. It was mine and Ken's song that we were writing in. And thankfully he agreed that he thought it was pretty cool, and it did. It does fit, even though it was something that was written long before the pandemic hit us.
Est-ce un poids à porter ou une fierté que les fans d'Obituary comparent systématiquement les nouveaux albums du groupe avec les trois premiers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but I totally understand why. I mean, I'm a music fan, so if you start comparing Slayer, yeah, I have to go back to Hell Awaits, Show No Mercy, Rain of Blood, because that is what we define them as. And even though they have 100 albums after this, I'm still, I mean, that's my Bible, that's in my DNA. So I totally understand when people say that, you know, Cause of Death is the album. I totally get it. But, you know, as a musician, as the songwriter, as the artist, it's a little frustrating because, you know, what more excited can you be about something except for your new album? And, you know, the saying goes, you're only as good as your last song written. And so that's why we could not be more proud and excited that Dying of Everything is released finally, and it's in the hands of fans that have been waiting a long time.
On a souvent dit qu'Obituary était au death ce que AC/DC était au hard rock, une formule qui ne change jamais. Donald prend-il ça comme une fatalité, une bonne blague ou la meilleure façon de décrire le groupe?
I'll take all that. They're definitely not shy to say that that's a compliment, in my opinion, my own opinion. But you know, anything that says, you know, you are etched somehow in the concrete, in the metal of metal history, that's awesome. That's something we don't take lightly. That's why when we do write songs and we write albums, we want it to be what fans you know, expect from Obituary, which is heavy and solid and that style that we've grown to figure out these last 3 decades.
I'm here in Florida. Est-ce que le fait de venir de Floride, qui est réputé pour sa scène musicale très variée, a influencé le son d'Obituary, en le rendant peut-être plus sexy que n'importe quel groupe de death en général?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. You know, there is definitely some kind of appeal to it, more than other death metal bands, in again my opinion, but it does go back to long before I learned what death metal was, in the late 70s and early 80s, when I was really starting to freak out on music, knowing I want to be a drummer. I see these bands and I'm hearing things that makes me want to be a drummer. But that was John Bonham and Led Zeppelin, you know, and then it was, of course, what was growing up when we were growing up in Tampa. It was right around us. It was Sabotage. You know, before death metal, it was Sabotage, and they were still one of my favorite bands in the world, one of the best bands in my opinion. So there was a lot of influence, you know, along with that southern rock that my brother and I were exposed, thanks to our oldest brother. It was all that Leonard Skinner and Molly Hatchet and the Outlaws and Charlie Daniels, and then of course Ted Nugent and Queen and Zeppelin. It was all rock, you know. It was, and that had some groove, and that did have some sexiness, you know. It wasn't just all metal and death, and so that was the early influence as a musician for me. And then of course, you know, then we got our hands on Venom and Hellhammer and Slayer, and the rest is history.
L'histoire du rock et du métal compte de beaux exemples de groupes formés entre frères. Obituary semble en tirer l'une des principales forces.
It's one of those things where I realize that I am extremely fortunate, so lucky to have my brother on the road with me and writing music and making business decisions together. But because, I mean, it was, for us, again, it's the brothers in Sabotage, it's the Pantera brothers, you know, it was Van Halen brothers, you know, that is what I knew when John and I were making a band, that Van Halen, AC/DC, Sabotage, it's, you're lucky to have a business partner as family. I've known Trevor since I was 11 years old, so for 2/3 of my life, we have been brothers. So the three of us have always been family, and again, super lucky, super fortunate that we are in a band that you can call family and not just business partners or bandmates, you know.
quel moment Donald s'est-il aperçu que la blague morbide d'adolescent devenait un job à part entière au retentissement mondial?
That's a good question because, we always wanted to be a band, but we didn't. I had no idea. I would never guess it'd be 11 albums in 33 years. After we recorded Slowly Rock, we didn't think about a second record. We didn't think of anything except, oh my God, I have an album. I'm holding my album finally. But what an amazing blink of an eye was 30 years and continue doing it and doing it well. I think each time you write a song, every time you write an album, every time you enter the studio, you hope you get better. You hope you learn from the last time, and I think that's what we, as a band, we are learning, that we are students of our own history, and we learn every time you go into the studio. You learn something, whether it's how to mic placement to get a better sounding guitar tone, or just the tuning of my drum set for certain parts of songs, and just just learning and becoming better each time you attempt an album or a studio session or a song.
La scène death de Tampa est associée historiquement au studio Morrissound. On est venu du Brésil comme Sepultura ou de France avec Loud Blast et Aggressor pour enregistrer là-bas. Comment explique-t-il que cet endroit ait été l'épicentre de tout ce courant?
Morrissound was the beginning of it for me, and I still live a football field away from Morrissound Studios. It's no longer Morrissound. They're at a different location now, but yeah, again, I was just a child, just a child entering the studio, and it was those two brothers, Tom and Jim Morris, that showed me everything. They showed me how to perform on an album compared to how I was doing it in my garage as a kid, playing way too loud, playing way too fast. Slow down, play clean that means a lot to me now, but back then I'm like, what does that mean? What do you play clean? Should I shower first? What do you mean? But they taught us all. They taught us all a lot, and to be a part of that recording studio from the early get-go and seeing how many bands came to Central Florida to record there was, because of Obituary, because of Nasty Savage, because of Sabotage and Deicide, then all these bands around the world were coming to Morrissound to get that sound, and that was pretty cool to be a part of, for sure.
Avec l'expérience et un peu de sagesse, est-ce que la vie est plus facile en tant que musicien d'Obituary en 2023?
No, it's not easy because, we work, how long do we work on getting an album ready, and how much money gets dumped into those rehearsals and those writing and the studio times and the printing of the records and getting it ready. And then you look and for instance, like when you go buy a new car, there's not even a CD player in the car anymore. So you talk about sleepless nights, you wonder, how are we actually going to survive as musicians unless we do what we do now, which is constantly away from home and living on tour. And you can't do that forever, but there is no retirement plan with the music industry because Obituary is not selling enough albums to go buy homes and pay your bills forever. So it's, people think it's easy, or they think that there's a lot of money involved. A lot of money comes in, but a lot of money goes out because of just the touring and the crew and the buses and the production. So in one hand, right out the other kind of thing. But the good thing is we're a solid unit, we're a family, we're healthy, and we're having a damn good time. And that nothing can stop us if we're in this kind of mood that we're in right now, and we're really on a roll right now with this new album and this world tour that we're on and working on right now.
Voilà, METALXS, c'est terminé pour aujourd'hui. On se retrouve dans 15 jours pour un nouveau numéro avec toujours plus d'interviews, de surprises et de contenus inédits. Un immense merci pour votre fidélité et n'oubliez pas de prolonger l'expérience métal sur riffx.fr. Salut!